This is my life with albinism.
Now, this is my life with albinism.
And this is my life with albinism.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Life with Albinism. And we have two special guests today. We're going to let them introduce themselves. We will start with Maya and then we will go to Cortel. So, Maya, tell us, about yourself and give us your social medias so everyone can find you.
Okay. So hi everybody. My name is Maya Warren. I am from North Carolina, a city adjacent to Greensboro called High Point. I am 23 years old. I just graduated from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro with my bachelor's in kinesiology, which is basically the study of the human body, how it moves, and some of the careers that it translates to are physical therapy and biomechanics and exercise physiology. I am a digital content creator, graphic designer, musician, singer. I wear a lot of hats. And I just want to say thank you guys for having me today.
Cortel?
Wow, that was a good start. I'm over here trying to like piece together the few things I got on as far as hats over here. But how y'all doing? My name is Cortel Farima. Everybody calls me Red. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. I currently live in Manhattan. I am a plumber as well as a super for a building in Manhattan. Uh, I love social media. I have two kids, a daughter that's 12 and a son, a daughter named Leslie and a son named Carter that's 6. I enjoy bike riding, hanging out with my friends, and I love basketball and all other sports.
So now, Maya, I do have one question for you. I
Mm-hmm.
do remember you said that you had some chronic illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah. So I have something called chronic migraine disease. Basically, when I describe it to people who don't know what migraines are, think of it as your brain being very sensitive. And it's not a headache. A headache is something that can easily be relieved. Chronic migraines are often something that require extensive diagnosis process, trial and error through medications and remedies and the whole gambit. And so there are 5 classes of medications traditionally used to treat chronic migraine. I've had multiple medications in all 5. None have been effective. um, and so in addition to that, I also have what's called chronic fatigue in relation to something called joint hypermobility syndrome. Basically, I'm what you called double jointed. So, like movements and things that would be very,
Show us an example. You can't just guess.
so a typical example that they use to
No, no,
diagnose people.
show us. Like you can pop your elbow the other way.
Yeah. So let's see. Put my thumb behind my hand.
Oh,
Okay.
So
what else?
yeah, a typical thing that they do during the test is a thumb test, where you can basically bring your thumb to your
Oh, I can't. Oh, I can't do that.
They also bend back your fingers.
So you're like double jointed in all of your joints, your
Yep,
knees, elbows, toes,
pretty
everything.
much. Yeah.
So what do you
Like
do with your elbow? Can you like?
so, it's usually just like, let's see.
Oh,
Yeah. So
oh,
one aspect of it, though, it's actually a spectrum. So people like myself deal with what's called chronic pain as a result of being double jointed. Because my joints like to move beyond the normal range of motion, it causes my body to respond with pain and like very
oh,
debilitating
I
amounts of
see.
pain. Yeah.
I see. Because your
Um,
body isn't supposed to be in that range of motion.
Exactly. So I didn't get diagnosed officially with that until recently, but it's something I've dealt with my entire life. Like I had over 20 plus injuries. I've dislocated my kneecap twice, uh, strained a couple hip flexors while fracturing my hip bone just going up for a layup. Several sprained ankles. So it all finally made sense when I got the diagnosis. Like, oh, okay, it took y'all this long to tell me what was wrong, but at least I know now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do these so and just real quickly, how do they affect your daily life?
Yeah, it really, to give you an idea, like once I graduated college, I was like, no more school. No more school. Because you're constantly in a state of fatigue. And it's not like, what's popularized in society, like, oh, I'm tired, I'm gonna lay down. No, it's a constant state of brain fog, fatigue, um, like soreness, and like the inability to concentrate and form complete sentences. And it's very difficult to power through that. Plus, you're dealing with various types of migraines. Often people who deal with migraine deal with multiple types. So I've had hemiplegic migraine, which is the traditional head throbbing sensation with the nausea and vertigo, but one side of my body is paralyzed in addition to all of that. And that's
Wait, one
probably the
side of
most.
your body is paralyzed too? Which side is that?
For me, it's different for everybody, but it seems to always happen on my right side.
So it happens sporadically.
Oh yeah, you don't
Okay,
get a
so
warning.
so is it really paralyzed then? Because I thought paralyzed was like when you have no feeling in that side at all.
Yeah, so basically hemiplegic, meaning one side of the body is paralyzed during the migraine attack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So during that, for however long the attack lasts, that's how long you're paralyzed. And despite there being many different types of migraine, there are four typical stages of migraine, three main stages. So that's the pre-drone, which usually consists of some type of warning. For some people, maybe yawning, neck stiffness, dizziness, aura, where they see different colors, flashing lights. That could be someone's signal. Then it goes into the attack phase, which can be anywhere from hours to days, depending on what the individual is going through. And then there's the post drone, often referred to as like the hangover effect. So if you ever had a hangover or a physical injury, like picture that amount of fatigue, but 10 times worse. So, and then there are people like myself who don't get any relief. So I'm constantly in a state of migraine. It just fluctuates in intensity for me.
Now, Cortel, do you have anything other than albinism?
Wow. I mean, I actually applaud you for being up here with us right now because you could be actually in pain right now and actually you're smiling and you're going through it and you're fighting through it. So that's tough. But
Real happy.
no, I don't. I don't. I'm
That's what,
sorry. I don't. I don't. I have albinism. My eyes feel like they're getting a little bit worse as I've gotten older. That's kind of something I've been dealing with as of lately. I'm having like irritations in my eyes. Wake up and feel like something's in there. It's not. So that's the type of
Having that same problem.
huh?
Having that same problem. Like you wake up in the middle of the night and your eyes are super, super itchy.
Right, right. And I'm like this, and it just gets worse. So that's the type of issues I'm having. It's annoying.
And Jason, what about you? Are you having any other issues?
any other issues? No. Dry eyes once in a while, similar to what you guys are feeling, but I usually just use some eye drops and it goes away.
Yeah, I have the itchy eyes too, but also because I have allergies and I live in North Carolina. And usually people who are from the North, when they come down here, they don't have allergies until they get down here. So that's why I have the allergies.
I'm really happy to hear this from you guys because I really thought something was wrong with me. Like when I kept
Mm-mm.
waking up with dry eyes or with itchy eyes, I'm thinking it was something I did wrong, or maybe I wasn't taking care of my vision correctly, you know. But to hear this from all of you guys now, I feel good now, you know. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it ain't just me.
It also happens to me like when I wear sunscreen. So you know have to put it on your face, not near your eyes, of course, but like on your face. For some reason, the smell of it, I don't know what it is. It makes my eyes water.
Oh, what kind of sunscreen do you use? What brand?
I use like the Neutrogena. I think it's 70. I used to use 100, but I went down to 70. And that's the best one I found because it's not thick and it doesn't stink. You know, sunscreen can stink.
Of
I don't
course.
like that.
Well, my biggest thing was as far as what like the sunblock was, like I used to put it up here, and that's like the worst thing because all it does is once you sweat, it just runs into your eyes. You just have a vision problem, right? So don't do that. Don't do that.
That's so true. That's why, like, usually when I do it, I have to like close my eyes really, really tight and do like a quick mist over the face. Like, I try not to spray it too much because, like you said, once you start sweating, it like drips down into your eye. So I try to like just do a quick mist and keep my eyes closed really, really tight.
Right. So what you could do is to minimize even having to put it up here over your forehead. You could basically just get a hat, of course, and then try to keep it from here down, like maybe from your mouth down. Always get the ears and the neck, and you should be good. That's what I've been doing. Past couple of times, I've been perfect. I was traveling in the winter time to different states where it was very, very hot, and I had to put sunblock on, and I kind of got through it.
Yeah, I usually keep it like cheeks down, but for here I wear a hat. But I think because I have such a strong sense of smell to compensate for the low vision, that gets to me for some reason.
Yeah, that's true. Never thought about it.
So guys, we are now going to go into our topic for today. So our topic is, do you, and if you do, how do you approach other people with albinism when you come across them in public? So we will go ahead and start with the guests first, and then we'll go to the host. So we'll start with you, Cortel. Do you approach other people with albinism when you see them in public? If so, how?
So I got like 4 different stories, but I'm gonna just take it to one because the one that kind of meant the most to me. So I had went to a college event. This is years ago. I'm 30. This was about 10 years ago. And it was actually an albino girl. She was hosting the event. And I thought she was like fascinating that she was hosting this event. And it was hundreds of people from the college there. It was actually Hampton University. And I went over to her and I tried to talk to her. And she was like, oh, no, she just walked off. And I was just like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I didn't pay any mind.
She had albinism?
She had albinism, yes. You know, but I think what spooked her was that I was on campus and people probably made a joke of it to her, like, hey, you know, it's another albino person on campus, right? It kind of like spooked her. So when I walked up to her, she probably didn't know what angle I was going to come from and just like kept her distance.
See, I feel like that's very disrespectful, though, that when you approached her, she kind of just like, yeah, whatever, and just walked away. Like, that's mad disrespectful, you know?
It's disrespectful,
I would have felt some type of way.
It could have not been because you had albinism. She probably could have thought you was trying to talk to her, get her number. It could have been anything.
I approached her like smiling, like, hey, how are you? And she was just like,
that might have been it.
Around and saw the albinism, she then should have been more receptive to it.
Right. I would think so. The second thing I had, it was actually a good thing that happened is my cousin's family has a little girl. She's a little older now. She suffers from albinism and her eyes are really, really light colored and stuff like that. And I walked up to her school and picked her up from school one day. And everybody was just looking like, oh, cool. And she was very happy for that. So I've had good experiences and bad.
Okay. What about you, Maya?
Yeah, so I will preface this by saying because of my vision, oftentimes other people who don't have albinism will point out someone who has albinism to me, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I think I was very blessed in that when I got to college, it was like I kept seeing people with albinism. And now, normally before college, I would see like one or two people and like, oh, that's cool, But then I got to college and it was like more students with it. And I was like, I felt really like, like I had a community at that point. And so the first person I met in college with albinism, we kind of approached each other. So like he came in the building. I was waiting for English class because I like to be early just in case I forgot something. And he came in the building and we saw each other. And so after that, we kind of like talked like, hey, he asked me, he's like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but do you have albinism? I'm like, that's not disrespectful. Yes, I have albinism. And we started having a conversation. And then he later introduced me to two other girls who had albinism. And I was just able to meet them and talk to them about their experience. We're all still connected to this day. I've had a lot of instances where people who are like parents of kids with albinism will come up to me. But before they even come up to me, my brother or my grandmother will be like, hey, there's a child with albinism or whatever the case is. And I'm like, okay, I'm aware of it. In those situations when it's a child, I don't want to just walk up to them because some parents are a little bit crazy about their kid, and that's understandable. And I don't want to be like a creepy person walking up. But generally, like if I get the vibe that it's okay to approach, like I'm cool with that. And I was in Target one day and we were shopping for something. This was right after basketball practice. And this lady comes running up to me. She's like, hey, excuse me. I don't want to be rude or anything, but could you come here for a second? And I was like, sure. So get to the end of the aisle. Her husband comes across the corner with their daughter who had albinism. And she was like, man, it's so, you don't know how good it is to see you. It's like looking at my daughter in like 10 years from now. And she just started asking me questions about resources and Noah. And like, she's like, do I have to wash her hair a certain way? Like it was a genuine, like very innocent moment. And I remember like seeing the little girl looking at me like, oh, wow, she looks just like me. So I've had several of those experiences.
Okay, Jason, what about you?
For me, I do not approach people with albinism. I've seen several people with albinism. Why not? I have no interest in talking to someone with albinism other than because we might not have anything in common other than the fact that we both have albinism. So I do not approach people with albinism. I've been approached by parents of children with albinism, and they usually, same as Maya, they will ask me a lot of questions about what should they do, what school did I go to, what's a good school, should they use this resource. Mostly they ask me about glasses because they will notice that I don't wear glasses and their child usually doesn't like wearing glasses. And I tell them it depends on the child. If it helps, like for me, glasses never helped me, never liked wearing them, so I never wore it. So it really depends on the child. If they're telling you that it's not helping, it's probably not helping them. Other than that, they would ask me about what kind of sunscreen to use, things like that. But no, I really don't approach people with albinism. I don't see why I would.
What? You see, now here's my issue with this whole thing, right? I don't think if you have albinism and you see another person with albinism, I think it should be mandatory to speak to them. You know what I mean? Because
I don't think so.
The reason why I say that is because now imagine any other disability or any other thing, right? Can you imagine a dwarf walking down the street or walking onto the bus and seeing another dwarf and not saying something? You think they would do that?
That's like saying just because you're black and you see another black
No,
person,
it's not like saying that. It's not like saying that.
other black person.
Black is not rare. Having albinism is rare. You know what I'm saying?
Let's say if you're black in another country or in another state where it's not that common, you still won't see them approaching each other. Just
I bet
because
you would. I bet you would.
So.
If you went to, I don't know, but if you went to like freaking Antarctica or something and there was only 3 black people there and one of the two black people saw each other, I guarantee you they would speak. There's no doubt in my mind that they would.
I think ultimately it comes down to people's personality. So I tend to be more ambiverted, which means like I have at moments where I can be situationally extroverted and I have moments when I'm more introverted. But I generally notice that people who are more extroverted and outgoing tend to be the ones to be like, oh, let me just go say hey to my people. Whereas more introverted people tend to stand back, observe the situation, feel things out. And if it seems approachable, they may or may not do that. And it just comes with time. I think the more confident you become in your albinism, like I have no problem with people coming up to me who don't even have albinism as long as they're respectful. I have no problem with questions. I frequently like in my friend groups, I'm like, hey, you got a question about albinism? I know it's random, but do you got a question? Because I can answer it. So it just depends on how comfortable you are and your personality. But I think the older I get, like being able to form those connections is really important, especially if it's like a someone around your age or like someone younger that could possibly be a mentee.
Now, Cortel, what do you think? Do you think that if you have albinism and you see another person with albinism out in public, that you should go and approach them or say something?
I mean, I get approached by a lot of people without albinism more often than people with albinism. But if I ever see people with albinism, I'll acknowledge them. I met a guy at a party and we didn't acknowledge each other to the end of the party, but I seen him throughout the party and we kept giving each other like this like family look, like, all right, cool. Like, all right, cool. Like every time we walked past each other, it was like, all right, cool. Like, and then at the end, I ended up getting his number, and I think his name was Jay. He was actually cool. I got it in my phone, and he was actually a cool dude. And he was like, "Yo, do you get girls?" And I was like, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool. They think I'm handsome and stuff like that. So, it was definitely a cool experience. But if I see them, I definitely. But I mean, if I ever seen anybody that was albino, like even now moving forward that I've had this conversation with y'all, I definitely will at least like speak more and be more like, because maybe they're annoyed, maybe they don't want to act. Hey, you're albino. Hey, it's like duh. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously, like So it's just your approach, maybe. You know what I'm saying?
So now,
But I
here's my
feel like it's
answer
the
to it, right?
situation. I
So
feel
now,
like it depends on the situation. But go on. Go on,
okay,
Dale.
so here's my answer to it, right? So for me personally, I 100% approach any and everyone that I see. Even sometimes where I may even make a fool of myself by approaching someone who doesn't have albinism. And just to give you an example of that, it's like for me, because my vision obviously isn't as good as normal vision, a lot of times I have to look out for key things to know if someone is albino or not, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing is the blonde hair. If I see the blonde hair and pale skin, I got to see blonde hair and pale skin. Then I automatically say to myself, that person might be albino. And then I'll try to get closer. I'll try to get closer to, look at them. Now, if I see the glasses too, then in my mind, you probably have albinism. Now I'm going to approach you. If I don't see the glasses, then I'm a little hesitant and I start looking for secondary things like, okay, is all of the hair blonde? Is the eyebrows blonde too? Like, I want to check everything to make sure that this person is albino. But there's been maybe 2 or 3 times, probably twice. I ain't gonna say 3 times, but maybe twice where someone had pale skin, blonde hair, and had glasses, and I approached them and asked them if they were albino, and they wasn't. And maybe it was a certain situation where maybe they dyed their hair blonde, or
Right.
maybe their hair was naturally blonde, but just slightly darker, you know what I mean, or something like that, and I just didn't pick up on it. But anyway, if I see somebody with albinism, I'm 100% approaching them, and I think that it's even more intense now because I'm doing the albinism podcast. So now that I have this podcast, I run up to these people like, hey, hold on, excuse me, do you have albinism? And once they say yes, I pull out my business cards and I say, yo, listen, I have this albinism podcast. You can check it out on YouTube. And usually they'll pull out their phone right away, and I'll type in the YouTube channel. I'll have them subscribe. I'll say, hey, check this episode out, check this episode out. And then at the end of that conversation, I always ask them for their phone number and ask them, are you interested in joining my show? 9 times out of 10, they say yes. But once in a while, I'll get a person who's like, I'm a little shy on camera. Oh, that's not really my thing. Once in a blue, but it doesn't happen often. But I personally feel like it's just awkward when you're in the same presence of another person with albinism and you guys see each other and just don't say anything. Like, that's just kind of awkward.
I think so. I think so in a sense. I think in a sense it is a little awkward. I think in a sense, so guys, I don't know if like even you, Dale, like I don't know if you know, but Erica is who introduced me basically to you, is a friend of all of ours, I guess. And when I first met her, we were going to the Lighthouse School of it was the in the Institute for the Blind and Visually Impaired. There were at least 9 guys that I met there with albinism. And we would all sit together. I remember one time, and I know when nobody has the picture because this was probably in 2005, we all took a picture together. It was like 9 people in the picture with albinism, and then there was a few other people with visually impaired issues. So I've definitely been around them. I have a friend who's albino, who's a chef. He's my son's godfather, and he's albino. You know what I'm saying? He's the coolest. And you know, I definitely understand where you're coming from now. At least we're getting to know people with albinism and coming up with different, ways to talk to them and get to know them. We're definitely familiar.
Right, and I say that because I'm pretty sure in any other situation, the 2 individuals would talk to each other if it was something rare, right? Now, of course, if you say like 2 black people or 2 white people or 2 Hispanic people, that's all over the place. That's whatever. But I'm pretty sure if you took 2, even I'll say something that's even not even as extreme. If you took 2 guys who were 7 feet tall and they happened to sit on a bus together, I guarantee you they would say something to each other. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be 7 feet and see another 7-foot person and not say something. You know what I mean?
Like that. I think that's cool. I think you're right.
So you get what I'm saying, Jason?
I get what you're saying, but for me, it depends on the situation. If I'm going to approach the person, if it's at a school where we're both attending the same school, yeah. But if I just see you on the train, I'll probably look up. I'll acknowledge that I see them, but I'm not going to talk to them.
And another thing I'll say is this, right? When you do see another person with albinism and you do approach them and say something, what I've noticed is a lot of times you really make their day by doing that. Like, there's at least been 2 or 3 times where I approach another person with albinism on the train, on the bus, wherever, and they will be like, wow, I've never met another person with albinism. Or they'll be like, wow, it's very rare that I see somebody else with albinism. So,
well, how do you normally approach them? What do you say?
So usually the first thing I say is, do you have albinism, right? Unless it's completely obvious, like heavy duty glasses, super pale skin, if it's super, super obvious, then I'll just say, yo, what's up, man? I have albinism too. That's usually my first 2 sentences. It's either, do you have albinism, or, hey, man, I also have albinism. And then after I say that, that's when they're usually like, oh, wow, me too. Wow, I can't believe I'm meeting another person, So you can end up making somebody's day by just approaching them and saying something.
I think so. I actually, growing up, it was a little awkward because I have a brother. He's 10 months older than me, but he's not albino. And he doesn't, and us growing up, he didn't really take well to anybody looking at me or saying anything to me. So I definitely had to be like the nice, calm brother and always be like, even when somebody say something, I would try to make it as smooth as possible. Like, yeah, you're white or whatever you say. And I'll be like, no, I'm albino. And I would try to educate more than he would try to want to like knuckle up and fight. And I'll be like, I'm albino, you know what I'm saying? This is that. So I definitely had to have patience in that aspect of just explaining certain things and letting people know certain things that they don't know. people could be ignorant to things they don't know only because they don't know what it is. So they're ignorant to it. You know what I'm saying? If they don't get if you don't ever drop any wisdom or jewels on them, they'll never know anything. You know?
And similar to what you guys mentioned earlier, I've also had awkward situations where people approach me because of my albinism. Like, for example, I was working at a grocery store. I was working at Kroger. This was, of course, when I was like a kid and whatever. And I remember bagging up the groceries, and there was this man who was like literally like standing like right behind me, like closer than arm's reach. And I remember turning around and looking at him like, "Yo, what's up?" And he was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were my son." And I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, what?
I had a very similar situation.
But to me, that was so silly because it's like, your son doesn't work at Kroger, so why did you think to approach me? Like, but what was your situation?
So I was in Target, right? And same Target the parents walked up to me in. And I'm like shopping around, looking at some shoes or whatever. And I noticed, like, you ever get the feeling somebody's first staring at you and then the second feeling they following you? I had both of those feelings. And I'm like, I took 2 steps, this person would take 2 steps. I took 3 steps, they took 3 steps. And I was like, well, let me go around the aisle and then circle around and then look at them. You know what I'm saying? And so I circled around, and it turned out to be the manager of Target. And she's like, "I am so sorry. You know what? I thought you were my daughter," because it turns out the daughter she has albinism, but she also worked at that Target.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why would you just follow her around? If you thought that was your daughter, why would you say, "Hey, so and so, what do you know?" Like,
that's what I thought.
or maybe because she was kind of unsure, it kind of spooked her out a bit. Like, is that her? Is that her? And then was like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just have you, Cortel or Jason, have you guys ever been mistaken for someone's relative?
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say, hey guys, have you ever been mistaken? All the time, very, very often.
Yes.
Very, very.
Yeah, me too. I get mistaken extremely often, and I think what upsets me the most about it is that sometimes, I don't know if you guys gone through this, but sometimes you get mistaken and the person seems so sure that they almost think you're lying. Like, I've been approached by a person one time.
Yes.
I was going to say, so I've been approached by a guy one time, and he's like, "Oh, hey, man, I remember you. And I know your brother too, and your mom, and they live over here on Creek Road," or whatever he said.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, "Nah, we never lived here." And he's like, and then he says to me, he says, "No, you did, and I know your family." And I'm like, like, he really said it to me with certainty, like, "No, I know you have this brother. I've seen him." I'm just like, come on, guy. Like, if I'm sitting here telling you that ain't me, and I don't even have a brother. So you can't even confuse my brother for someone else because I don't have one. You know what I mean? So sometimes you get ignorant people like that mistake you for someone, and they're like almost so certain that they question you about it.
Right. I've had situations where people had that much assurance in telling me what ethnicity I was. Like, this one lady walked up to me. She was like, "Are you white?" I was like, "No, ma'am." "Are you mixed?" "No, ma'am." "Are you Puerto Rican?" "You are Puerto Rican." "No, wait, forget that. You're mixed." And I'm like, "No, I have albinism. I'm African American, yada, yada, yada." She's like, "Nah, you mixed. You're mixed." And then walks away. And I just remember thinking like, ugh, the audacity of some people to try to tell you who you are. And that's why, like, huh?
I said that's just strange that she would act that way. That she would like, I don't get it how somebody can think that they know something about you so distinctively like that, and it's a complete stranger.
Right. You don't even know the person.
Now, Jason, has that ever happened to you where not only did someone misconstrue you for someone else, but presented it to you with certainty, like I know that this is you, or I know such and such?
Never as someone's relative. I've never got mistaken as someone's child or their brother, but definitely they would say that they know me, that we went to school together, or we did something together, or they seen me at some party that I've never been to before. But they're
Yo, Jason, do you live in the NYC area? They might be talking about me, man. I'm a local guy out here.
Y'all do not look like each other.
But I'm in the Bronx though. They don't see me in Brooklyn.
Okay. Nah, I mean, I was living in Brooklyn. I live in Manhattan now. But I definitely I'm more known in Brooklyn. If it was in Brooklyn, we might have something to say.
Now I'm gonna leave y'all with this one last question before we close out.
All right.
Is it fair to say that all albinos look alike?
No.
No.
Or most?
I will say this, like, we have some very distinct features depending on our ethnicity. So for those of us who are Black, like, we're gonna have some similar characteristics, but the way those characteristics come into fruition in who we are and how we carry ourselves are very distinct and different. And I think a lot of it is just people don't know. That's why in one of my social media posts, I was like, look, just so you know, we're not all related. Actually, it affects people all over the world. So just because you see one person with albinism don't mean they're white or Black. They could very well be Asian or Hispanic or whatever.
Yeah. Similar with me, people think that me and Dale are brothers. A few people ask me, or whenever they see me with anyone with albinism, they assume that we're brothers or we're twins.
And don't be with a woman who has albinism, because I've had two female friends with albinism that I would hang out with, Tequila and Tony, and every single time I have ever been out with them, people swear up and down they're my girlfriend, they're my wife, we're in a relationship. So if I'm with a female with albinism, it gotta be they're in a relationship. If I'm with a male with albinism, it gotta be with brothers. But I think let's just be fair though. Most people with albinism of the same ethnicity do look alike. Let's just be real. Like, you know what I mean? Like Cortell, right? No, for real. Because like Cortell, right? Me and him, we kind of look alike. I'm just a little more handsome, but we look alike.
I knew it was coming.
But not for real. But in terms of, like, we both have the brown beard. We both have, a more of a stocky kind of build. You know what I'm saying? So if we were about the same height, and if we both put on glasses or took the glasses off, we would look like we are related. I mean, that's just being real. And
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
My question is, you have glasses on. Do they help you as far as with your vision?
Tremendously.
You got to plug me in, man.
Definitely.
Seriously. I mean, because everybody that I know, like, as far as like friends, not to get off topic, but they always ask me, hey, why you don't wear glasses? And I'm like, they don't help. They're annoying. They're on my face. Like, they're useless. And they're like, no, you need glasses. And just good to know. Good to know.
Right, so
Maya, what about you? They help you?
Oh, so in short, real like prescription glasses have yet to have helped my vision in any way. So what I have on right now are what do you call the UV blue light glasses, because I do a lot of stuff that involves me being on the computer, and with the chronic migraines and the photophobia with albinism, it just kind of takes some of that harshness off.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So lastly, guys, Cortell and Maya, I just want you to give everyone your social medias where they can follow you, and we'll close out the show like that.
Maya, you go first.
Yeah. Okay. So where do I begin? My Instagram is MAYIAWARRN, Maya Warren. So is my Facebook. My YouTube channel is the same thing. My podcast is on pretty much all streaming platforms with the exception of Apple Podcasts, and it's called the Better Not Bitter podcast with Maya Warren.
Okay. Mine's is Red's World with 2 D's, REDDS World. Lightest Man in the Dark. That's my movie I'm putting together real soon. You guys will get ready for it. Very interesting. Yeah, Red's World. My Facebook is Cortel Red Florima. And I appreciate you letting me on here, Dale. And you guys all stay safe, stay out the sun, stay dangerous.
Yes, thank both of you guys for coming on. And again, guys, subscribe and follow us. You can follow us on Instagram at life_with_albinism. You can find us on YouTube at Life with Albinism Podcast. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share for more content, And thank you guys. Thank you guests for coming on today. And we appreciate it. I think we had an amazing episode, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Be safe, man. Thank you, Dale. Thank you,
No problem.
Jason. Thank you, Maya. Appreciate you guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
too.
Thank you.